At our engagement dinner, my in-laws toasted with champagne and said, "Here's to finally making a better decision." I sat there, smiling, as my future husband sipped his drink. After dessert, I took the mic and said, "Actually, I have one more decision left to make," and took off my ring. The look on their faces? Dessert. My name's Danielle. Most people call me Danny. I'm 31 now, but this happened when I was 29, just about a year into being engaged to a man I thought I knew. His name was Jake. We were together a little over 2 years when he proposed. It happened during a weekend trip to Hilton Head. Sunset, quiet beach, just the two of us. He got down on one knee and everything. I said yes before he even opened the box. At the time, it felt right. He was smart, dependable, good at his job. He's a physical therapist, and we got along well. I work as a vet tech in Charleston, and we met through one of his clients who happened to be a dog owner I saw regularly. It was one of those small world things that felt like fate. The first time I met his parents, I should have paid attention to the way they looked at me. His mom, Cheryl, smiled like she had a lemon in her mouth. His dad, Bill, barely looked at me. They weren't rude. They were polite in the way rich people are polite when they don't like you but know better than to say it out loud. His mom asked questions that weren't really questions. "So, no college degree, huh? But you love animals. That's cute. I guess it's nice to have a steady little job. Doesn't stress you out too much." She'd say those things with that same smile. I told myself I could win her over. I'm good with people. I'm honest. I'm kind. And I really love Jake. But the closer we got to the wedding, the more I saw things I didn't like. Cheryl had opinions about everything. What the dress should look like. Which venue reflected their family values. She even made a snide comment about how maybe we should wait to see if I could slim down a little before dress fittings. Jake brushed it off. "She doesn't mean it like that," he said. But she did. Every single time. Still, I thought, he's not his mom. We'll move away from this. Start our own life. Then came the engagement dinner. Jake's parents planned the whole thing. It was held at some upscale country club in Savannah. I'd never been there before, but the moment I walked in, I felt like I didn't belong. Marble floors, chandeliers, gold-plated silverware. Every guest was someone from their circle, lawyers, board members, and realtors with plastic smiles. My parents came, of course. My mom wore a navy blue dress she'd bought for my cousin's wedding a year earlier. My dad wore his one good suit. They were proud, nervous, and clearly out of place. Cheryl barely spoke to them. She gave my mom a compliment that wasn't a compliment. "I just love that you don't care about labels. That's so freeing." And ignored my dad altogether. I watched my dad chew his steak slowly, eyes down, while my mom tried to make small talk with people who couldn't have cared less. Dinner went on too long. People talked about investments, vacation homes, wine pairings. Jake laughed like he was one of them. Not once did he check in on how I was feeling. Then came the toast. Cheryl stood, holding a glass of champagne, and said loud enough for the whole damn room to hear, "To Jake. We've seen him go through a lot of phases and some questionable choices, but we always believed he'd find his way. And now, finally, here he is, making a better decision." People laughed. Not loud, but just enough to tell me they got the joke. I froze. Jake raised his glass and drank. That's what gutted me. Not her words, hers didn't surprise me anymore, but his silence. He didn't look at me. He didn't touch my hand. He didn't say, "Hey, that's not okay." He just took a sip. After dinner, he leaned toward me and whispered, "Don't overreact. That's just how she jokes." I smiled at him. I felt calm, too calm. Something inside me clicked. Then dessert came. I waited until everyone had a fork in their mouth. I stood up and walked over to the microphone, the one the DJ had used for the earlier announcements. I tapped it once and said, "Hey, sorry, before the night wraps up. I've got something to say." Jake looked confused. Cheryl looked smug. Bill didn't even look up from his pie. I held the mic steady and said, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who came tonight, especially to the people who showed up with love and support in their hearts. Then I looked right at Cheryl. And to those who didn't, it's okay. I've made mistakes before, but this time I'm making a better decision. I took the ring off my finger and walked it back to Jake. I set it down on the table in front of him. He stood up. What the hell are you doing? I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm leaving. You're serious, he said. I was serious when I said yes to someone who was supposed to protect me, who was supposed to have my back. But tonight, I saw who you really are. Cheryl opened her mouth like she wanted to speak. I cut her off with one sentence, you'll never be good enough for me. And then I turned to my parents. We're done here. We walked out of that country club together. No one stopped us. I think most of them were too stunned to even move. In the parking lot, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I finally saw things clearly. Jake called. He texted. He emailed. He showed up at my apartment once, but I didn't answer the door. The last message he sent just said, you embarrassed me in front of everyone. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I messed up. Just, you embarrassed me. That told me everything I needed. After that night, I thought I was done with Jake and his family. I thought I could just walk away and be free. But when people like Cheryl lose control, they don't just let go. About 2 weeks after the engagement dinner, I got a call at work. I was in the middle of assisting with a dog surgery when the clinic receptionist knocked on the glass window of the OR, holding up a note. Your mom's on the phone. Says it's urgent. I froze. My heart dropped. I ripped off my gloves, cleaned up fast, and rushed to the phone. My mom's voice was shaking. Danny, Cheryl showed up at your dad's work. She cornered him in the parking lot. I could barely speak. What? Why? She said she just wanted to talk. But she wouldn't let him leave. She accused us of turning you against Jake. She said we ruined the wedding. Danny, she said awful things. My hands started to shake. I knew Cheryl was controlling. I knew she was cruel. But this? This crossed every line. I'm driving there now, I said. By the time I got to my dad's office, Cheryl was gone. My dad was sitting in his truck, hands shaking on the steering wheel. He didn't even get out when I pulled up. Just sat there, staring straight ahead. She said I raised a manipulative daughter, he told me. Said you were after Jake for his money. That you embarrassed the whole family. I wanted to scream. That night, I wrote Cheryl an email. No threats. Just facts. If you show up at my parents' home or work again, I will involve the police. This is harassment. I want no contact with you or your family. She didn't reply. But Jake did. You didn't have to make this so ugly, he wrote. I didn't answer. Instead, I changed my number. I blocked every possible number I thought they'd use. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. 1 week later, I got served. Jake was suing me for emotional distress and the costs of the engagement dinner. The papers came to my job. I was handed the envelope in the middle of the waiting room, in front of 2 clients and a coworker. Jake was claiming I'd publicly humiliated him and caused reputational damage. He wanted me to reimburse his parents for the cost of the engagement dinner, over $14,000, and also pay $5,000 for damaged social capital. I laughed when I read it. Then I cried. I didn't have that kind of money. I lived paycheck to paycheck. I didn't even have $1,000 in savings at that point. I called a lawyer my coworker recommended. She was blunt. This is a scare tactic. But he's serious. These people want to punish you. I wanted to cave. I wanted to apologize just to make it stop. But then I remembered something. I still had all the emails Cheryl sent about the wedding. The snide comments. The pressure. I had screenshots of her texts mocking my job, telling me I should let her pick my wedding dress. I even had a video. One my brother took quietly at the engagement dinner, where you could clearly hear Cheryl's toast. I gave everything to my lawyer. We countersued. Defamation. Harassment. Emotional abuse. And then I went one step further. I reached out to one of Jake's exes. Her name was Tasha. She was a nurse. I found her on Facebook after remembering Jake once said they dated back in college. I sent her a message. She replied within an hour. "You're not the first one. Cheryl ruined us too." She told me everything. How Cheryl used to pop by her work and question her coworkers. How Jake once broke up with her after his mom found out her parents were divorced. How she ended up in therapy because she started doubting herself after all the gaslighting. She sent me her own set of emails. We added them to the case file. By the time we got to mediation, Jake looked like a ghost of the man I used to know. He was pale, nervous, sweating through his shirt. Cheryl tried to speak for him. My lawyer shut it down. "This isn't about you, ma'am." Jake's lawyer leaned over and whispered something in his ear. Jake stared at the floor for a long time, then mumbled, "We'd like to withdraw the suit." My lawyer said, "Nope. We want damages now." It got quiet. Then Cheryl lost it. "You want money from us?" After what she did. "This girl's a gold digger. You're lucky she left." I didn't say a word. The mediator asked everyone to leave the room while they tried to reach an agreement. In the end, they paid me a settlement. Not a lot, but enough to cover legal costs and give me some breathing room. I walked out of that room with my head high. But it wasn't over. A few months passed. I focused on my work, spent weekends with my parents, and tried to move on. The lawsuit was behind me, and I thought Jake and Cheryl were finally out of my life. But then something weird started happening. I noticed unfamiliar cars parked on my street. Not every day, but often enough that it made me feel watched. One night, around 10:30, I came home and saw a dark SUV with tinted windows just sitting outside my house. The engine was running. When I slowed down in my driveway, the SUV pulled off. The next morning, there was a white envelope taped to my front door. No address. No name. Inside was a single printed photo of me walking out of my vet clinic, holding a coffee. On the back, it said, "Still watching. Still judging." I called the police. They took a report, but there wasn't much they could do without a name. I didn't have proof it was Cheryl or Jake. But who else would do this? I started staying with my parents some nights. My dad put up cameras around their house and mine. Every time I left the clinic, my boss would walk me to my car. Then I got a call from the Savannah Police Department. Someone had used my name to open 3 credit cards in Georgia. All 3 had been maxed out within a week. Luxury purchases, hotel stays, even jewelry. They wanted to know if I'd recently moved or shopped in person at a high-end boutique in downtown Savannah. I hadn't. They flagged it as identity theft. I filed a report with the FTC. Froze my credit. It took weeks of paperwork, phone calls, and bank statements to clear everything. But then I got a message. From an Instagram account with 0 posts, no followers, and the handle at TruthHurtsDanny. The message said, "You should have just married him. You could have had it all." I showed it to my lawyer. She started building a harassment case. Again. But here's the twist I didn't expect. That same week, I got a call from someone I hadn't heard from in over a year. Jake's sister, Melanie. I barely knew her. She lived in Austin and didn't come to the engagement dinner. She'd sent a polite email when we got engaged, and that was it. Her voicemail said, "Danny, this is Melanie. I don't know what's been going on, but I think you should call me. Something's wrong. Something serious. It's about my mom." I didn't want to call her back, but I did. Melanie told me that Cheryl had a breakdown, that she'd been acting paranoid, accusing Melanie of being on my side, ranting about how I ruined her family. Melanie said Cheryl had started drinking more. She got into a fight with Jake, and he ended up calling the cops one night when she locked herself in her bedroom and started throwing things. She was taken in for evaluation. Melanie said they diagnosed her with something, she didn't say what, but she was being held on a 72-hour psych hold. And Jake? He finally moved out of his parents' house. He was living in a rental now. Alone. Melanie told me he looked broken. I didn't know what to say. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. She still talks about you. Every day. Sometimes she blames you. Sometimes she thinks you're the only one who understood her. It's not rational, but it's always about you. Melanie said she was scared her mother might hurt someone. She told me to be careful. That night, I packed a go bag. I didn't sleep. I just sat up on the couch with my dad's old baseball bat beside me and my phone in my lap. I didn't know what Cheryl might do next. But I knew one thing. I was going to end this. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in months. I called Jake. He answered on the second ring. Danny? His voice sounded raw, tired, like he hadn't slept either. I don't want to talk long, I said. But I need to know something. Did you know your mom was doing all this? The stalking, the credit fraud, the photo, the message. He was quiet for too long. Then he said, not at first. I closed my eyes. I didn't know until after you got the settlement. She lost it after that. She started keeping folders of your pictures, printed your social media, tracked your work schedule. I told her to stop. I begged her. You begged her, I repeated. But you didn't warn me. She said she'd stop. I thought if I stayed close to her, I could control it. You're not a child, Jake. You let her come after me. You could have warned me before she showed up at my dad's work. Before she used my name to commit fraud. You didn't stop her, you enabled her. I know, he whispered. I was afraid. She's my mom. I hung up. That was his excuse. Fear. I wasn't afraid anymore. Later that day, I called the detective handling my identity theft case. I gave him every message, every printout, every voicemail. I gave him Melanie's contact info. And I gave him Jake's admission. 3 weeks later, Cheryl was arrested. Not just for the fraud, but for stalking, harassment, and identity theft. Turns out she used Jake's laptop to set up the credit card accounts. Left a digital trail a mile wide. Jake wasn't charged, but he lost his job. His boss didn't want the drama around the clinic. A few of his clients refused to see him again. His reputation was shot. He tried to blame me for that, too. Said I went nuclear. Maybe I did. But so did they. Cheryl took a plea deal. 2 years probation. Court-ordered therapy. A restraining order that said she had to stay at least 500 feet away from me or my family at all times. I moved again. Not out of fear, but for peace. The last time I saw Jake was in court. He didn't speak to me. Just stared down at his shoes while his mother cried beside him in handcuffs. The judge asked if I wanted to make a statement. I said, I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even scared. I'm just done being the girl who lets people treat her like she's lucky to be chosen. I choose myself now. Afterward, I walked out into the bright Savannah sun, my heart calm. And that night, I had dinner with my parents. My dad grilled steaks. My mom made cornbread. We sat out on the porch, laughing like we used to. My mom raised her glass and said, here's to making the best decision. This time, I sipped the champagne without shaking. And this time, it was real.